Well, we're keeping the coverage rolling on the investment conference that's taking place in Sandton. We cross now to my colleague Arabile Gumede.
That's fine. This way.
Investment conference here at Sandton Convention Center has certainly brought about a whole lot of commitments, a whole lot of collaborations, and indeed a whole lot of communication between particular agencies, companies, and indeed even countries. Now locally, of course, we continue to ask ourselves how we can move South Africa forward, whether it be with regards to data, whether it be to generation of information, and how to move that forward. We continuously speak about the fourth industrial revolution and how that will help. Well, that was one of the plenary sessions that were hosted right here at the investment conference. Let's chat now to the minister in charge of that and other segments, the Minister of Telecommunications, Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams. Thank you so much for the time. Really, really appreciate it. If we talk not just about how we move South Africa forward in the fourth industrial revolution as one of the plenaries that we had here, but certainly about the industry of creating a technological advancement for South Africa. How do we do that in the midst of a tough economic environment?
Well, let me first correct something. I'm the minister responsible for communications and digital technologies, which is made of the two departments, telecommunications and communications.
So not entirely wrong then.
Well, you're not wrong in that context, but yeah, that's fine. Yes, because I'm still responsible for telecoms. The question that you're asking is very important and crucial. Of course, when the economy goes down, it becomes a concern for every government.
Sure.
And now, as people in the space who believe that if there's lots of investment that's made into the 4IR technologies, giving South Africans an opportunity to say, we are great in agriculture, we are great in education, we are great in mining. How do we build on those and leverage through the usage of the digital technologies that we're talking about? And now ours is to say, as the investors are pledging their monies to South Africa, ours is to say, what's the breakdown? Because key to that, if a company pledges 50 billion to South Africa, we should at least make sure that it is not less than 50% remains in South Africa. That's the only thing that's going to help us turn the economy around. And part of doing that is to make sure that we localize certain components or services, which is why we took the approach that says, let's look into the entire 4IR or the fourth industrial revolution ecosystem, not just the technology as technology, there's services over technology, there are people over technology, but most importantly, there are challenges that South Africans are faced with. How do we, for example, as the minister responsible for postal services also, how do I make sure that as people complain about the delay of delivery of their books, I make sure that I bridge that gap by training young people on drone piloting and drone programming, and we deploy the drones to deliver the documents or whatever parcel that must be delivered at home. Those are just some of the interventions that we're making. But as I said, key to that investment is to create an enabling environment by government. Because investors would want to come to South Africa, but if the environment does not allow, then they're not going to stay in this country. They would want to leave. But on top of that, it is to ensure that the South Africans themselves are skilled in relation to the fourth industrial revolution skills that are required. Because it's going to be expensive to do business with South Africa. If companies come and invest in South Africa, and when they're looking for data scientists, they can't find them because they are not there. Which is why we launched a program that we refer to as the Building of the Capable Army. 1 million young people that must be trained on data science and related skills. The reason we are doing that, we are saying in the fourth industrial revolution, data is the new oil or the new currency. Therefore, we can't miss it. Everything has to be analyzed. What you post on Facebook, the information that I send when I go to the clinic, the information that you put on your own GPS and the cell phone, but most importantly, when you're watching your TV also at home, who is watching you? And therefore, these are the opportunities that people of South Africa have to identify and say, we've identified there's a gap in the system, and this is how we can help you and bring that advancement at home.
In order to bring all of this advancement, however, one needs to think about how best to perhaps use the funds at hand in order to do so. So in having a constrained funding environment, one needs to then perhaps get the right kind of partnerships in place. Are we sitting in a position where at this investment conference we have the right partners wanting to join us in order to push that agenda forward?
You are not going to believe me if you are not inside. But if you were inside, I'm sure you have seen we ran out of time because everybody wanted to pledge. They all saying South Africa is the best place to invest in. But most importantly, they saying they believe that because the environment is stable in South Africa, they're going to make a return on their investment. And they saying as they grow, they want to make sure that they lift South Africans up. And that's the opportunity that we want to tap into, to say as they make their profits, let's also make sure that our people are able to contribute economically. But it's not just about getting our people to get jobs. It's about them being able to participate in the economy by providing solutions, whether it's to big companies or to local companies, including government.
Yeah.
So there's lots of partners that are saying, you saw.
Yeah. And now you have to convince those partners that we're here to not one just to stay, but their money is going to be used correctly. And I say that only in the context of South Africa's environment right now. We're sitting with harrowing debt levels, growth that is perhaps undermining where we perhaps should be at this point in time. Convincing them every time to ensure that they stay is the important part. How do you do that?
Well, one of the key things that we outlined as we listened to the Minister of Finance when he delivered his speech, he spoke to us tightening the belts in certain areas, but you know that we have a stable tax environment, which is another crucial factor for investors, the stable regulatory environment, and we have people who understand and put the country first. That we have. Of course, there are those that will be mischievous and try their own tact, but that's why now we said there's a need for us to strengthen the law enforcement agencies, but we can't be policing people all the time. People of South Africa know that South Africa is in a critical state right now. We can't spend on what we do not have.
Yes.
We've got to make sure that we are responsible citizens, that if I have an overdraft in my card, I can't go and buy a nice Gucci bag whilst there's no money, it's an overdraft, it belongs to somebody else.
Sure.
But also, key to the interventions as department we said we must do as we engage with the partners is to say we plead with all the investors, including the businesses in South Africa, to make sure that their assets are here and they bank here. Because one of the tendencies of the tendencies that people, they bank outside when they're not confident about your economy. But at least they are promising that if we just create that enabling environment, as I said, the overhauling of the legislations that we have,
sure,
that must respond and enable them to thrive as they make business, and the introduction of the incentives in the critical sectors. Of course, I'm going to focus on my sector because I want all my people to have access to connectivity.
Yes,
that's the first thing that we are bringing.
And those data prices are going to be very
definitely
important.
They're going to follow. We issued the policy direction. ICASA issued the information memoranda on Friday. We're kickstarting the process of licensing.
That's fantastic. Absolutely great. Very quickly, as a final question, is South Africa ready for the African Free Continental Free Trade Agreement? I ask because we need it in order to pick up on everything we have as a country in order to grow a lot further.
We are very ready as the country and as Africa. Recently, in the past weeks, all the ministers in the different clusters in Africa will come together to come up with their own strategies.
Sure.
What is it that we must do to make sure that we benefit from that? But most importantly, what we're emphasizing is us collaborating with each other's African states,
yes,
so that the market is not segmented.
Yeah, fantastic. Minister, thank you so much for the time. Really, really appreciate it. Minister Stella Ndabeni-Abrahams, then of course joining us to continue the discussion here around that communications network as well. We'll continue to give you the latest, of course, then out of the South African Investment Conference here at the Sandton Convention Center. Do stay tuned. We're just going to head off to a short break right after this.